The simplest way for gaming studios to earn money is to pump out more of what everybody wants. So long as there is a demand for Super Mario, Final Fantasy, and Resident Evil, the gaming giants will continue to churn out sequels, spin-offs, prequels, remakes, and crossovers till the cows come home. That said, there are exceptions to the rule. Despite receiving rave reviews, a few of the best platformers, RPGs, and first-person shooters never got a part 2. For some entries on this list, that was because a sequel was never strongly considered by the powers that be, and on the other hand, some other games got so close to becoming a franchise, it's all the more crushing how they never saw the light of day. Although the games we've got for you here may receive a sequel in the future, you probably shouldn't be holding your breath. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 awesome video games that never got sequels. Number 10, Sleeping Dogs. Starting off as a true crime sequel, United Front's project was reworked into a spiritual successor called Sleeping Dogs. Though Grand Theft Auto copycats are a dime a dozen, this Hong Kong-based crime saga is anything but a cheap imitation. In fact, in certain ways, Sleeping Dogs surpasses Rockstar North's defining brand. The gameplay moves at a steady pace, giving characters plenty of time to be fleshed out, and every voice actor is on top form, no matter how minor their role. The slow-mo shootouts and Arkham Asylum-inspired combat is so dynamic, GTA's action pales by comparison. Though many of GTA's side missions are generic, just as much effort has been put into Sleeping Dogs subquests as the central missions. Upon its release, the odds were not in Sleeping Dogs' favor, since it was a new IP contending against heavy hitters like Borderlands, Far Cry, and FIFA. Although Sleeping Dogs sold an impressive 1.5 million copies, the publisher regarded it as a failure. Though a Sleeping Dogs sequel and a multiplayer spin-off were intended at one point or another, both projects were put to sleep. Number 9, LA Noire. During its grueling 7-year development, LA Noire suffered multiple delays, numerous staff complaints, and a change in platform and publisher. But it all seemed worth it in the end, since Team Bondi's detective sim was a wowing success. Though its well-designed voice acting and intricate plot were applauded, it was the motion capture, interrogation sequences, and focus on deduction that made LA Noire tower over its competition. In a way, LA Noire didn't really have any competition, since there's never been a game like it before or since. But after selling over 7 million units and receiving every single accolade under the sun, it was obvious the masses wanted more. There was just one problem. 5 months after its release, Bondi went into liquidation, placing LA Noire's future in jeopardy. Though a spiritual successor called Whore of the Orient was developed for several years, that too was shelved indefinitely until 2016. The rumor mill was in full swing again in 2020, with rumblings that LA Noire 2 was in the works, but as before, these claims went nowhere. Although the LA Noire VR spin-off received decent reviews, fans are still desperate for a real sequel. Number 8, Blast Corps. Rare repeatedly knocked it out of the park on the Nintendo 64, firing out hits like Diddy Kong Racing, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and of course GoldenEye 007. Due to Rare's repertoire, it's easy to forget about their earliest work on the system, Blast Corps. In this game, the objective is to secure a route for an approaching nuclear transport unit by destroying anything it might collide into. Players can demolish through buildings with bulldozers, dump trucks, missiles, and mech suits. Basically, you have everything to destroy everything to save everyone. It may not have been as mind-blowing as other Rare projects, but the innovative concept, fluid controls, and variety in puzzles made Blast Corps, well, a blast. Also, reducing a 20-story skyscraper into rubble by slamming into it from above never gets old. Sadly, Blast Corps didn't hit its sales quota, killing any chance of a sequel. Since Rare as we knew it no longer exists, Blast Corps 2 is pretty unfeasible. Since technology and motion controls have advanced so far since Blast Corps debuted, it'd be amazing to see how a modern installment would turn out, so hopefully that'll happen. Number 7, Catherine. Simply put, there just is no game like Catherine. Half the gameplay is a dating sim with the protagonist Vincent trying to date multiple women who share the same name. The other half of the gameplay involves Vincent trapped in the dream world as a sheep, where he must complete block-pushing puzzles to navigate up a collapsing tower while being chased by nightmare-inducing monsters. The concept is utterly bonkers. It shouldn't work, but it does, and so well. Catherine has something for everyone. It offers brain-teasing puzzles, strategic platforming, social simulation interactions, an otherworldly narrative, a dollop of horror, and most importantly, it's got sheep. Even if puzzles aren't your cup of tea, you may be totally invested in Vincent's conflicting relationships, or vice versa. Also, the real-world sections offer a lot of freedom, so you can decide what to do or who to speak to. If players want to cut the dating section short and jump back into the dream world, there's nothing stopping you. 8 years after its release, a new version called Catherine Full Body was released, which featured a whole new love interest. Although this edition was welcome, there's no mention of a Catherine sequel, even after a decade, and that's just a pity. Number 6. Muramasa the Demon Blade. On paper, Muramasa the Demon Blade sounds too ambitious for its own good. After all, this Wii title is a beat-em-up hack-and-slash Metroidvania with RPG elements which incorporates kabuki theater, Buddhist theology, and Japanese mythology. Even though it should be impossible to juggle that many ideas at once, Muramasa pulls it off with flying colors. Due to the absorbing battle system, luscious visuals, beautiful music, and awesome bosses, there's no doubt Vanillaware's samurai side-scroller is among the Wii's most underrated games. Now, considering Muramasa was released the same year as not just Wii Sports, but also Wii Play and Mario Kart Wii, it really shouldn't have stood a chance. But the Demon Blade didn't just meet sales expectations, it surpassed them. Alas, even though it did, a follow-up never materialized. Weirder still, there's no real reason why. Interestingly, Vanillaware have never made a sequel to any of their properties. This is an odd practice since the company is surprisingly consistent at doling out successful games untied to established brands. I mean, how many other gaming companies can make that claim? Though the PS Vita port of Muramasa the Demon Blade contained plenty of extra content, a true sequel would definitely be appreciated. Number 5. Space Station, Silicon Valley. DMA Design's quirky platformer follows a sentient microchip called Evo, who crash lands on a space station populated with animal robots. Each android has one key power, meaning Evo must figure out who to possess to complete specific tasks. Upon its release, SSSV received heavy praise and several game awards due to its wacky humor, catchy space pop tunes, inventive puzzles, and challenging levels. However, what makes the gem stand out is the variety in its gameplay. With over 40 creatures to control and dozens of diverse levels to explore, there's never a dull moment. Evo can possess gorillas to swing through vines, kangaroos to reach higher platforms, or penguins to swim in iced water. Puzzles, routes, and enemies can be conquered through multiple means, allowing players to find the solution that best suits them, and they're incentivized to revisit completed areas to locate the incredibly well-hidden trophies. Sadly, Space Station Silicon Valley didn't sell well, which is why a follow-up never came to fruition. Since this body-hopping puzzler hasn't been ported in 20 plus years, it's tricky to get a hold of. But if you have an N64 or a PS1 handy, it's really worth tracking down a copy. Number 4. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Though Souls fans have been pining for another Bloodborne for a decade, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is arguably more deserving of the sequel treatment. Not only did Bloodborne already get an awesome DLC, it's likely it'll be remade in the foreseeable future. But Sekiro is owed a follow-up more than any other From Software title because it takes the biggest departure from the genre. Despite following the Soulsborne blueprint, this shinobi slasher has an array of unique mechanics that distinguish it from its predecessors. Rather than wailing on enemies, the combat revolves around counterattacks, parries, and dodges. The posture system urges players to focus on timing and precision instead of force. Although Sekiro beautifully captures Sengoku history, that's just one time period. Since countless conflicts raged in feudal Japan for over a millennium, there are so many other periods that could be explored in later entries. Considering how much untapped potential Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has, it's annoying how there isn't a word or a whisper of the Samurai Saga making a comeback. Number 3. Mark of the Ninja. Even though stealth focuses on covertness and subtlety, games in the genre tend to involve a lot of direct violence. However, Mark of the Ninja takes stealth to the extreme. Facing enemies head-on never ends well, forcing players to constantly operate in the shadows. Fortunately, our ninjutsu-trained protagonist utilizes many innovative mechanics to stay hidden, including hiding bodies, picking locks, disabling lights, and distracting guards. The nameless ninja is equipped with darts, a grappling hook, spores, mines, smoke bombs, noisemakers, and suicide-inducing darts, offering a variety of methods to dispatch baddies and disable security systems. Also, our hero is rewarded with extra points if subtler techniques are used on enemies. Since these points can be exchanged for helpful items and upgrades, players are very encouraged to assess every danger and find the most inconspicuous strategy to progress. Due to the versatility in gameplay, Mark of the Ninja is considered one of the best 2D stealth titles ever. For this reason, it's strange how Clay Entertainment have never pursued a sequel. They made a follow-up for Shank, and that's nowhere near the same caliber. Although the 2018 remaster was definitely appreciated, fans are still pining for a whole new installment. Number 2, Vagrant Story. Final Fantasy is such a dominant RPG, it's easy to forget about Square's other incredible role players, including Secret of Mana, Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, and Bravely Default. But if any Square property deserved more credit, it's Vagrant Story. Simply put, the PS1 role player was way ahead of the curve. It utilized plausible real-time combat, chained abilities, and weapon crafting long before any of those mechanics became the norm. Hiroshi Inagawa and his art team pushed the graphics as far as possible, to the point where it's hard to believe the console's hardware could even handle them without issue. Though exploration is a big factor in role players, Vagrant Story cranks it up a notch, setting the entire game in a labyrinth-style grid. Though this structure could result in tedious wandering, it's never an issue due to the perfectly designed map. Thanks to the lavish score, innovative battle system, epic story, and enthralling characters, it's no surprise Vagrant Story became the third video game to receive a perfect score from Famitsu. As such, Vagrant Story has all the qualities needed to launch a franchise. But since this treasured title was released at the end of the PS1's life cycle, it didn't make a profit. Nevertheless, Vagrant Story has become so widely revered for the last 20 plus years, it's strange that Square haven't given it another look. Number 1, Bully. Bully got so much attention for its controversial themes during its release, there wasn't enough focus on the fact that it was a really awesome game. Bully boasted a well-structured open world, a tight script, diverse missions, and a slew of creative minigames. Due to its success, a remaster was released 2 years later, which offered new objectives, characters, classes, and a multiplayer mode. But the gaming community wanted more. Although a sequel wasn't initially on the cards, the developers changed their tune when Bully surpassed sales expectations. In 2008, a team at Rockstar New England got to work on the follow-up. Hoping to match the quality of Red Dead and GTA, Bully 2 is expected to focus more on advanced AI, so the smallest decision would affect characters' behavior later on in the main campaign. Within the first year of development, the project seemed to be shaping up nicely, with 6 to 8 hours completed. But in 2009, Rockstar suddenly pushed the developers onto other titles, causing the project to stall. Despite former Rockstar exec Dan Houser saying the company had hoped to circle back to the sequel, nothing ended up coming of it. Although Bully 2 has been confirmed on several occasions, such news has repeatedly proven to be false. Even though a Bully sequel would be a dream, it looks like we'll have to settle with the original for the foreseeable future.